We're here today with my friend, Sarah Nelson. Sarah is an artist and she gets paid for that. Isn't that a pleasure? What have you been working on?
What have I been working on? Well, I have been working on a ton of different things that all require pens, pencils, that cool app Fresco, which you and I talk about sometimes, and I draw a whole bunch of different things, usually something revolving around nature, for a lot of different people. And like you said, I do it for money. And for fun.
What's your favorite type of art?
I love paintings of plants and landscapes, which is probably why I do a lot of that too. But have you been to a museum where you just like walk by and you see a place that's just in the perfect light, just water stretching into nowhere land, and you feel like you're transported to that place when you look at it? That's one of my favorite things. I like a lot of different things, but that's one of my favorites.
I heard you got to go to somewhere cool.
I did. Yeah, I got to go on basically a pirate ship, the one with like the really big sails, and I got to sail around a place called the Arctic Circle, which is essentially, not even essentially, it is the North Pole.
How did you get to go to the Arctic Circle?
That is such a great question because it's really hard to get there. It is not a place very many people go. It's really far away, as you can imagine, and it looks so different than a place like LA because it's snowy and half the year it's only in darkness. But I got to go because I was invited through an application process to accompany a bunch of other artists and scientists to be on a ship. So it was this. They call it an international artist residency. It's a program that they do a few times every single year, and I was lucky enough to be invited to join.
That's really cool. How many days were you gone?
I was gone for almost a whole month. And guess what the craziest part about that was? I didn't have internet or cell service for that entire month.
I can't live with that. I really can't.
And it was sunshine the whole time. There was never any darkness.
What was it like to be in sunlight all the time?
It was wild. Can you imagine never seeing the moon or not seeing any stars for days and days and days? At all times, it just looks like it's like noon. You start to kind of lose your mind a little bit because nothing ever changes. So you never know when a day starts or a day ends unless you're just keeping your own rhythms, which is challenging when the light never changes.
Did you grow as an artist when you were gone?
Yeah, I feel like I did because when you're put in such a unique situation, you discover new parts of yourself and you discover new parts of the world around you, and all of those things come together to create new forms of inspiration and new ways of thinking and processing the world around you. And so, yeah, I think I did. I think a lot of it is more complicated in my actual day-to-day creative work, but it's going to be with me for a long time, and I'm excited to see what it continues to inspire and grow in my professional work too.
Did you get seasick?
I did one time. We were on the ship and the waves were really, really high, and the boat was rocking so dramatically that when I went to even run my toothbrush under the water was going completely sideways. I took a shower and I couldn't even stand because the water was just everywhere, and that messed with my stomach enough to make me seasick. So I just stayed in bed all day, which was kind of a bummer. Have you ever been seasick?
No.
Good. Avoid it at all costs.
What are the big things made of ice called?
So there's two different kinds. There's one that's called like an iceberg, which can also be smaller and just called glacial ice. And I'll explain what that is in a second. And then there's also sea ice, which is huge ice sheets. They're almost like islands. Polar bears walk on them, walruses walk on them. And that's frozen ocean water. But they're big, but they look like pancakes. But underneath the water, they're huge and thick. And then glacial ice is usually what you think of like a huge iceberg or those big like white sculptures floating in the water. those are actually broken off of glaciers, which is really, really, really old compacted snow that's melted enough to turn into ice, and they move really, really slowly in between mountains. A lot of the world has been shaped by those, which is kind of crazy. But ice, who knew? So many different types.
How cold did it get and how hot did it get?
That's a good question. So living in California, my tolerance has gone way down, and we didn't have a thermometer the whole time, but I think it got into the teens, sometimes colder with the wind chill, and then it got into the 40s, which is very warm for that region.
Wow.
Here, do you want me to explain it? So this is the Earth, right? We're like somewhere around here. I was up here. So when the Earth is spinning and the sun is here, it just circles around the top of the globe instead of hiding behind the world as it floats. So like if this is the sun, you can see how this top is always illuminated, but this gets dark sometimes. That's why it was sun the whole time. It never set, it would just go around in a circle in the sky.
But then, how does it get dark?
It doesn't until right now. And now it's dark for months.
How?
No sunlight, because it's the same thing. So now it's going to tilt away just enough where the sun is exposing the South Pole the whole time. And so the South Pole is getting all the light and the North Pole is getting no light from the sun. It basically just moves like just out of reach. The way they describe it there is actually kind of cool. So you know how we have like nighttime, sunrise, regular daylight, and then sunset, and then night again. For them, it's that kind of light process, but over the whole year. So through January, maybe even February, it's just darkness. And then in February, they call it like the blue light season, and it's like sunrise light, but for 2 months. And then it's like regular middle of the day light for 3 months. And then it's sunset light, a permanent sunset for like 2.5 months. And then it goes straight into darkness.
Wow.
Isn't that wild? It's pretty different, huh?
How did you get to go on this residency?
I got to go because I'm an artist, but you could also go if you were a scientist or a writer or a musician. You just have to be working in a field that actually, yeah, just like you, or your parents or a lot of your friends. You just have to be creative and actively working in that profession on some level, fill out an application, and then it's kind of competitive. But if you get selected, you get to go, which is really, really fun and cool. I got to be on the boat with 28 other artists and scientists. There were some people who were writing novels. There were some people who were studying narwhals. Do you know what a narwhal is? It's like a whale with the unicorn spike. Yeah, she was studying those. There are some people who are taking photos and video with like very, very old equipment, so it looked like it was created from the time when people actually explored the Arctic regions initially, which was really cool. So you can do a lot of different things. You just have to apply, which is a process, but if you apply and you get accepted, you get to do this really incredible thing and see a part of the world that's really, really special. And anyone can apply.
We'll definitely keep that part in.
I feel very validated. How cool. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
What is global warming?
Global warming, that is such a big topic, and there's a lot of different ways to talk about it, but I think the best small version of it is that our planet, this round ball that's floating through space, is notably getting hotter. And that has consequences. So a lot of the conversations around this mass heating of the planet relates a lot to what happens to our water systems, what happens to our animals, to our plants, to humans, because it changes the weather, it changes how things grow, it changes the balance that a lot of our planet has relied on for a really, really long time. So as it gets hotter, we have to adapt and change and try to keep it as cool as we can. And because all of those things are being affected, it creates a lot of problems that we have to figure out how to solve. So the first thing that we like to address is figure out how to stop the dramatic warming, because that's a key issue that affects a lot of different things. And so there's a lot of different ways to tackle that question, and a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about it. But yeah, that's global warming. It's getting hot in here. Literally and figuratively. I think the thing that I've felt the most drawn to try to work on is just bridging the gap of the general public's understanding of what's going on. Because, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of things we've already changed and tried to do to be better about keeping our planet cooler, but as an individual, you have a really small impact. It's powerful, but it's still really small. And so I think my passion, especially after being to a place that is now the fastest warming place on the planet, it's warming 6 times faster than anywhere else, according to a study that literally came out very recently. That's made me want to let younger generations, like Cora's world, know why it matters and how a place so far away from LA impacts LA on a regular basis, and help people get excited about caring for our planet because it feels precious to them and worth taking care of and saving. So yeah, there's things like you use less water, or you try to reuse things, or you recycle. All of that is good and important, and everything you add makes a difference. But I think also getting us to collectively care about and get excited about something is the most powerful role that I feel like I can play, since I can kind of act as an ambassador to a hot desert from the ice ocean. Yeah.